Waiting. Live. Hit the button. Is that
We're live.
Yeah, there it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to
Rectangle.
Game Audio Hour number 100.
Really? Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
100 episodes of Our Ugly Faces, but you're welcome. This is our weekly podcast where we discuss all things game audio, from a creative idea to the latest techniques and project experiences, audio secrets. Here's where you find in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. Hey, for the 101st episode, I should probably change that to something else. Let's just send something in. Send it through Twitter. Give me ideas for the new thing that I should say at the beginning of the show. I'm not going to say all of them. I promise you I'm not going to get stuff that's good for the air, but the ones that are good for the air, I'll say some of those. What do you think, Vince? Should we do that? Should we have like a contest of make Kyle say something different?
Oh, man. Oh. Yeah, I think it would be cool. You have a pretty cool voice. We could make you just say anything. It would be like there are those guys on YouTube that have those awesome, super deep trailer voices, and you could get them to say really dumb stuff. Maybe you could do that.
Yeah, I think that's a compliment. Thank you.
Could get somebody to say it. Yeah. Michael Jobson's coming to my place tomorrow. I'll record you guys a catchphrase, and you can just hit the button.
Oh, that would be awesome. Speaking of which, I'm coming back to Gordon. Hi, Mike. There's another Gordon in the room.
I know,
Michael,
we may get the shootout. We
How
may
you
have to
doing,
have one shootout. It's doing well. Trotting over your speech, like usual. My
No
usual
worries. I didn't say anything important.
Things are great here. Just got a flash flood warning, so there may be some excitement during the show, but otherwise things are peachy.
Oh, and you know what? I wanted to welcome back the long-lost Alex. Where have you been, sir?
I've just been, actually I've been on your side of the planet. Well, kind of, sort of in between your side and my side, somewhere in between, someplace called Europe. I found myself in Sweden last week while you were doing the show, just sort of taking care of some business. Some exciting stuff to announce pretty soon, but all that aside, 100 bloody episodes.
Nice, right?
That is amazing. That makes us like 100 decades old, doesn't it? Or like 100 eons. I don't know.
I liked it when we had our 52nd show and I said we've done a year of shows just because it's 52 weeks in a year and it's a weekly show. We had actually done more than a year, but I'm pretty stubborn that way. And, you know, Alex, I thought your segue was brilliant because you just said taking care of business, which is by a band out of Canada. And we happen to be joined by two Canadians, starting with Matthew Martinson. How are you, buddy?
Hello, everyone. Great to be back here again.
What mic you got?
Still rocking the Telefunken, M82. Most German mic on the podcast.
Yeah, in the green room we were having a mic off, but my mic did not cooperate with me.
You could have won. You would have given me a run for my money right there.
Only a run. It wouldn't have been a victory, I don't think. It would have just been a run. What's Gordon using? Gordon, welcome to the show.
This one? Oh, it's just a cheap little Audio Technica. It was my first kind of work mic. $100. Still love it.
Which is it?
AT2035.
Nice. You know,
Still a work.
The business mic is in the booth, but
what is that?
I don't think that was me.
I think you're supposed to keep the business in the front and party in the
business
back.
is in the back.
Yeah.
Damien is back. What's up, buddy?
Hey, good to see you. Yeah, thanks for having me again, and great to be among so many friends.
Oh, thank you for always taking care, all three of you, for taking care of the game audio world.
Yeah, I'm just rocking this H2. It ain't nothing. Just a little H2. Nothing fancy.
Actually, I thought that thing beside you, Damien, I thought it was a pinball machine, but actually on closer inspection, it's a Sun Ra poster. That's incredible.
Ooh. Yeah, it's beautiful. This was a Christmas gift this year, and love it. Killian Eng is the artist, and big Sun Ra fan, big Killian Eng fan, and yeah, it's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's great.
Well, I was going to explain the idea of the 100th episode is we wanted to get as many podcasters on. We reached out to other people. Unfortunately, they were busy as well, but we were going to get as many people on here as possible to see if we could break Google. We've got just the right amount that maybe Google will work, so you're going to probably catch those of you listening to the show, not viewing it, a lot of momentary broken silences because we're all going to try to manage our mute buttons with the Apple D. Mike has shown us, Mike Shapiro has shown us that Apple D is the auto mute button, and so we're going to try to do that so we can not spend a lot of time talking over each other and confusing people. But the idea was to get as many podcasters together as possible and say thank you for talking about us, supporting us. Thank you for your support of the community. We're kind of like the younger brother in this podcast world with you guys, and we can't thank you enough for everything you guys are doing. And I think it'd be fun for us just to get together and have kind of a state of game audio conversation based on a game show theme that Vince has come up with. Vince, you want to explain it?
All right. So basically, since we do have so many people here, I want to give people a chance to not just talk about game audio, but maybe earn that chance, or at least earn that chance to speak the first word on various game audio topics by showing off how well they know non-game audio topics. Still game-related, but not game audio. The way this is... No, you'll eventually have your chance. We'll all have our chance with these topics. But I've got a bunch of topics here. But before we get to the audio, you have to answer a non-audio question first. Now, you guys know where the camera is for all your setups. So if you know the answer to the question that I say, I want you to just wave your hand in front of the webcam like I'm doing right now, and I will call on you. And we'll see if you actually get it right. And if you do get it right, you get first shot at what's going on with this audio topic. So are you guys ready?
Bring it on.
Do we have like a special handicap for like poor latency latency from Japan across the other side of the planet, or is that asking a bit too much?
Nope.
No, I get a. Let's see. I'll use my own built-in latency compensation factor here. And just like let me dial this in here. Okay, so let's go for this.
All right.
So this is a little bit of video game history. This scrolling shooter, designed by Eugene Jarvis and published by Williams in 1980, was actually the first scrolling shooting game. And I think that was Michael Shapiro there.
I'm going to guess Defender.
Defender is absolutely correct. So yeah.
Nice one.
Congratulations.
Bandcamp.
I'll ask, does anyone
Yeah, that's
know?
right.
Does anyone know what the sequel to Defender was?
Defender 2.
That's a better answer than the real one, so I'm going to accept it.
Oh man.
Prosecutor? Offender? Offender?
DA.
Okay.
What was it, Mike? What was it?
I think it was called Stargate.
Oh, Stargate.
The movie.
Yeah, no relation to the movie, and
They
indeed.
sequeled it with the movie.
They could have called it The People You Didn't Get. Those Left Behind.
Nice. So, Michael, you get a first shot at this question that's eventually going to get to every one of us here. But here we go. You know, it's been about a decade since Halo 3 hit the Xbox 360 and gave us some plugins running in real time. These were actually plugins that were licensed by Waves. EQ, compressor, limiter plugins that were running in runtime during the game. If you had your druthers, what plugins would you have running in your next game project?
Thanks for that question. So very relevant to my sphere of expertise. Since I'm not really prepared with a useful answer, I think it would be cool to put Dehumanizer as a standard plugin for every game, because we've really hit a kind of artistic plateau with game voiceovers at this point, with recognizable male feel archetypes. If everyone sounded kind of like 20 to 40% orc, I think gaming as we enjoy it today would be a much more exciting experience.
That's definitely possible. I mean, let's see. Dehumanizer, I think, was mostly done in Max MSP, and you can definitely do a whole lot of Max runtime stuff on various things. I'm pretty sure you could have that running in the background, although it is actually a really CPU-intensive plugin. I've used Dehumanizer a bit. Have Have any of you other guys played around with Dehumanizer? If not that, do you have any other thoughts on preferred plugins that you would love to have running in real time during a game?
I'm going to piggyback off your Max MSP and just go straight for the jugular and say pure data in the game, right? And I don't use a lot of plugins myself. I don't work in a DAW, and so I'll just say if we can just do all the things all the time with something like PD or Max, then I guess that seems like we're maybe skipping a few steps on the way, but I'm all for it. And of course, the heavy guys at Enzian Audio are working on porting that through the various middlewares and game engines. So the future looks bright for that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
I'm excited for that.
That would be awesome to have PD in there. Anything you want to do.
I would like to have Contact. Well, you can pick these like gigantically powerful plugins and just throw them in, and I would like Contact's insane. Reactor would be insane. You could do anything. If you could load up VSTs, I mean, we're talking like complete futurology.
Yeah.
Talking like I'm not going to throw a 40 gig piano into a game that might not even get used. Exactly. Once they're printing those glass million terabyte discs, then we'll be set.
Or there's Nautical. I'd love to have Nautical in there so I can just make all that generative audio stuff happen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that'd be pretty fun. I noticed actually on the Game Audio Denizens Facebook group that there were a few guys talking about pure data on there, and mostly using pure data with Unity. It seemed like they weren't too successful doing the music sound sync with action stuff that they were talking about. But it's actually really cool to see that sort of very technical talk happening there. And PD is definitely that next step beyond Fmod and Wise, and it's really quite amazingly powerful.
Well, it's already kind of successfully supplanted audio engines in certain games. You have the libpd, which is a runtime efficient mobile library for pure data that's been leveraged in a handful of different games. Kind of my fave of them was a game called Bad Hotel.
Bad Hotel?
Yeah.
That was a great game.
Company called Lucky Frame, does that sound right?
Wait a minute.
Procedurally generated the music based on the conglomeration of your different hotel pieces that you used as kind of a tower defense-y kind of strategy game.
Yeah, Bad Hotel by Lucky Frame. That's cool.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, and there have been other examples that have leveraged the libpd libraries, and there was and so I think there's a lot of potentials, but one of the things that, whether it's kind of an expansive thing like Pure Data or Contact, or like the Big Knob Waves plugin, it's the question comes down to how accessible is it and how dynamic can you make it, right? And obviously PD is at one end of that spectrum, way over there with like all the knobs and all the parameters. And something like Dehumanizer might be a little more set it and forget it. I don't know, you dial in your patch and just let it roll.
Well, it's also about how much you want to be generating an engine versus what do you want, like what's it doing for you that's more efficient, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's because you want to save disk space or use less RAM or what, I guess.
It'd be great using stuff like actually running Dehumanizer in a game. It'd be great for stuff like guard barks. Or creature barks, where you have one set of an actor's lines that you've recorded, and then you can turn them into 5 or 6 more unidentifiable creatures from each other.
Yeah, or depending on the context of the game, if the character changes throughout, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Actually, I kind of want to go back to Michael, because I was thinking, besides just good old VST plugins, what about soft synths? and I guess I'd also open this up to Alex as well, since you haven't chimed in on this topic yet. Not just plugins, but also soft synths. Like, would you be interested in having a soft synth instrument running in the game as opposed to just rendering out your music?
Absolutely. I would choose Yuhi's Badzilla, their phase distortion, frequency modulation behemoth, only because the current project that I'm doing with Vitae Backroom, I did probably 90% of the sounds for the whole game using that. It's being, with phase distortion and that kind of synthesis, you can really get sounds that are not sort of obviously synthetic in a sort of subtractive way, but sort of that uncomfortable, uncanny valley between real and not real, which is sometimes, depending on the context of the game visually, what you're looking at, can be really, really fascinating to sort of complement the overall style of something. Because I always kind of feel that if the game doesn't look realistic, then why should it necessarily have to sound realistic? But, you're seeing that sort of subtractive stuff comes with certain genre kind of implications that you sort of think of, sort of retro gaming or 8-bit or pixel art or stuff like that. Shifting it forward a little bit into sort of the sort of slightly realistic but not quite is always really, I find it really fun anyway. And Yuhi's Badzilla is a great one for doing that. So being able to use that in real time would be fantastic, because I don't really know how you would do that. Like, technically, I think that would be extremely inefficient. Also, be extremely intensive on processing on the CPU, because it's not Badzilla is not a lightweight synthesizer. But yeah, that would be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, we're talking about the future, so anything goes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and you've messed around with the Wise Synth 1, the kind of first forays in Wise into that?
Yeah, actually, the game that we're doing at Vitae Backroom, probably about 20% of the sounds I'm using Wise's synthesizer for. Awesome. And it's primitive. I mean, it's great for just sort of laying a bed of, like in this particular game, you're a taxi driver. It's a VR game, and you're a taxi driver. So for sort of a general city ambience kind of bed, I'm using just some filtered pink noise out of the synthesizer. Also, the engine sound for the car is all using Wise's synthesizer.
Oh wow!
And that's great, because of course, engines are unless you're using specific tools for them, it's really hard to get them to sounding kind of natural as they ramp up and down through gears and stuff like that. And using Wise's synthesizer in real time for doing that is just really, really easy. So that was I think that was some ring modulated. What did it was? It was Wise's synth with, I think it's ring modulation, and it can also do some basic FM stuff as well. And that's what I used to do the engine sound. So it's not a real. It doesn't sound like a real engine, but it doesn't sound like a sort of a typically retro gaming kind of engine. That sort of uncomfortable middle point is what I like to use, especially in that case, because visually the game looks kind of uncomfortable and awkward in a cool way, of course.
Oh wow!
Yeah, well, I guess 10 years ago, we were talking, Halo and Waves. That was kind of the first kind of drop in the pool, and after that, Microsoft actually got WaveArts out on the East Coast to port a bunch of their VSTs, which were pretty runtime efficient, over to, I think the Halo folks used them. Wow. And just flash forward to today, and of course we're talking Synth 1 in the box. FMOD has always had a kind of tone generator synthesizer aspect to it, and with things like McDSP or Isotope in Wise that can be licensed, right? That's pretty good motion for 10 years to be to a place where we can pick and choose that kind of stuff, right?
I think it's absolutely incredible. When I first started using Wise, that was most of starting to use Wise was kind of stressful and scary if it wasn't for Damien's fantastic what's it called, Project Adventure document, which is just, I mean, so many people I'm sure who are trying to get into Wise. The help files for Wise it's very good if you kind of know what you have to look for, but just the ability to read an experienced person's stepping through the whole workflow of setting up something is what really turned it around for me. But anyway, yeah, after Damien's incredible document discovering Wise's real-time synthesis capabilities was the big grin moment.
Would you say that Damien's document made you wise about Wise?
I would say that it made me Fmod about Wise. I mean, Wise about Fmod.
All night, throw money.
Well, that's an attribute to the folks at Audiokinetic who were looking for that kind of document, right? They said, "Hey, let's bring someone in and talk through the whole process as a comprehensive thing." And kudos to them for having the foresight to see how that can help bridge the gap. Because it's like you step into one of these tools and it's a little bit of madness. So I'm glad that it helped. Cheers.
Hey, Vince, what's the next one?
All right, let's move on. So, we're living right now in a new world of free-to-play and freemium and monetization. Let's see if you guys know this term. I'm going to spell out this term, and if you know it, just wave your hand wildly in front of the webcam. I want you to define the term ARPDAU. ARPDAU. Oh, is that Alex? Alex, go for it.
ARPDAU is average revenue per daily active user.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah, ARPUs are from years ago now. Now we're on to ARPMAUs and ARPDAUs, monthly active user, daily active user, daily paying active user. We're breaking these things down so much. It's cool that you know that. I was actually surprised that no one else wanted to jump on that.
Did you see Matt Yeoman's comment? According to him, it means action role-playing digital audio underwear.
I'm wearing them right now.
Sounds
That's
legit.
pretty fantastic.
You're
I
soaking
actually
in
like
it.
Matt's comment wins. It wins.
I'm wearing my action role-playing digital audio wear on top of my pants. So how about that?
Oh man.
Wait, are we
After
talking pants or
that-
pants?
Both.
I keep hitting
Trousers?
I keep hitting the mute button at Apple D, but I'm in other screens. So like on my screen, every time I hit Apple D, something else goes popping up, and my mic is still on. I'm such a nitwit.
So what do I get, Vince? What's my prize?
What do you get? You get first shot at this question. There are some new fun ways to control your DAW. One of the more fun things for both music and sound design that I've seen recently utilizes the Leap motion controller and the Gecko MIDI app to create different sort of CCs with hand position. And now there are people that are using that in conjunction with VR because everyone's got their Oculus and Vive headsets shipped. Augmented reality is just around the corner. So a year from now, what physical tools do you think you'll be using to make music and sounds?
Wow. What physical tools?
You could say that you're going to be using the exact same stuff that you've got right now. You got your laptop or your desktop. You got your keyboards, your microphones, your interface. Not much is going to change. Or are you really anticipating something? Maybe it's something that we haven't quite seen yet on the market.
Are you saying within a year?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think you'll see this time next year?
Hurry up, Alex, go.
That's a really tough one because, we're seeing a lot of solutions to problems that don't really exist. I think as far as, interface, oddball sort of interfaces and, all of them are sort of chasing that elusive spontaneity, the idea that maybe interacting with some kind of device in a way that is unconventional will give you sort of spontaneous, interesting new results and new angles on things that you otherwise wouldn't have really thought of. So I guess to answer the question, maybe we need to look at, I don't have an answer, so I'm just sort of speculating, but maybe we need to look at then what real problems are there with the way that we create music, because a lot of these solutions that don't have problems sort of come and go, and of course there'll be people who are really interested in them, get into them and really connect with certain kinds of devices, but if we look long term, I guess the ones that are going to last are the ones that are actually solving real problems that we all have. And I guess That's a really tough one. Like, what actual problems?
Well, it
I think
doesn't have
because
to be solving problems. It can just be what's going to be the most fun.
yeah, I mean, I suppose
we put a musical instrument in Fantastic Contraption that's basically a fully playable contact instrument. And I've tried a few other apps that are virtual reality based synthesis apps that have been, they're pretty rudimentary right now, but I can see them getting really, really sweet. So whereas you may not be like creating fully fledged songs, it will just be a cool space to be in, and you're working with new instruments in a completely like presence based way.
I think
it's going to be really rad.
I think maybe it might, something, because up until now, the earlier era, basically inputting into a DAW requires you playing a piano keyboard. So the piano keyboard is kind of like, at some stage rather, became the default for input. Then, in the last, 10 years or so, there are so many options for people who don't play piano or people who aren't writing music that naturally lends itself to piano, such as like MPC-style drum pads, or now I guess that at the moment we're in sort of the finger pad kind of era, and I guess also iPad apps are coming up with different kinds of ways that you can interact with touch with DAWs. So I don't personally know whether the next logical step after that is VR or AR for actual work purposes for inputting data. Like I'm not sure, at least from my experience, I haven't tried anything yet that changes your whole mindset towards inputting musical data so drastically that I would think, right, this is the way forward. Oh, geez, why couldn't I got an easier question like something?
I've got a couple ideas along that line if I can stick my head in here.
Go for it.
So at NAMM this year we saw that cool Rolly, which is kind of what's that called? Continuum, but it's affordable. And then there's the Autophon, which was a Kickstarter thing that I'm still waiting on. Mike reminded me of that. Thanks, Mike. And but both of those things are kind of something that has existed in the past that is now becoming affordable that you can get. Like it was like almost a proof of concept with a Continuum, because it was so expensive, not a bunch of people could use it. And now people are coming out with their own kind of Continuum kind of form factor. I guess it's not fair to say, because the Rolly is actually very lumpy, where the Continuum isn't. But it leads me to the point I'm trying to make, which is that there's so many affordable things now. I have some 500 series gear where you can get some amazing pieces of gear for the 500 series that is affordable. You can get into the Eurorack now for $50, depending upon what you want to buy. These things, 5 years ago were not that affordable. And then on top of that, I've noticed an increase. This is kind of a side note, but it's related to what you were saying. So I think that the instruments that we're going to use a year from now are just going to be the things that were kind of out of reach but are now financially within reach. I don't know if we're going to have any kind of massive breakthrough. Gordon mentioned kind of like in-game stuff, which is really cool. And Ian, when he hired me to work on The Sims 2, Ian put a keyboard in there that you could go in and play, and we did a bunch of sounds for that. So there are some like in-game cool instruments that people could use that kind of translates to iPads and stuff like that as well, where they can get a lot further now. And of course, Guitar Hero had the built-in recording studio. But I don't know if it's going to go that way. I think that people are going to kind of incorporate what exists outside and put it in a game. But then on top of that, I think that the things that were expensive are now less expensive and more affordable. And here's what I wanted to get to, because I promised myself I'd bring this up today. Don't forget that places like Sweetwater will sell you things for like 3 payments. And if you're new, if you're young, you're out of college, you don't have, let's say, you don't have a line of credit, or a credit report. What's the word I'm looking for? Save me. You don't.
Credit history.
You haven't started your credit history. That's what I'm trying to get to. I kept wanting to say bad credit. That's not the case. It's just you haven't started, and you want to get something. Look into these companies like Sweetwater that'll help you buy something and then pay it off in 3 equal payments. But on top of that, Z-Zounds, if you haven't heard of them, Zzounds.com. They just started one for 12 months, and I don't know. I ended up ordering some stuff, and there was no credit check or anything. So it's like, pay us for 12 months, and here's your equipment. And so I bought some stuff that I don't mind paying off for 12 months at a very small payment, But my goodness, man, I wish when I was starting out and I was trying to establish myself that these things were available. And what's really cool about the Z-Sounds one, and I almost did this, is they have a Neumann U87 out there that qualifies. So if you want that ridiculously expensive mic and you want to pay it off 12 payments over a year, that's available to you. Anyway, so my point was that I just wanted to squeeze that in because I thought it was important to mention for people who are listening. Check out zsounds.com, check out sweetwater.com, and get on their payment system. But on top of that, the things that we couldn't afford before in the past are now becoming affordable.
I think that dovetails right into sample libraries, sound libraries, right? It used to be you had to shell out the hundreds of dollars for the, whatever the fanciest, biggest bundle was, and today you plop, $15 down for the specialized sound library, and you're off to the races doing the thing.
And your stuff will not sound like everybody else's.
Yeah. But
like, how you use it. Like all the TV shows all sounded the same in the 90s, and it's so nice that things are getting a little more unique now.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, just like you're talking about the stuff coming down in price, look at what happened to Lemur. Like, Lemur was this dedicated piece of super expensive hardware that was like only the biggest guys had it because it was so expensive, and now it's an iPad app. Like,
the most expensive iPad app, but it's still it's an iPad app.
But when you look at, it's expensive for an iPad app, but when you look at it as how much is a plug-in, it's still cheap.
So true, so true. And I use it every day, I promise you.
Yeah.
I think we haven't...
I think that's what's going to keep happening is the bar is going to be being lowered for being able to get these tools for everybody. It's going to become more readily available is the biggest thing that's going to change, or continue to change.
And that's true of middleware as well, right? It used to be you had to sign your life away on an NDA to Creative Labs to get a copy of ISACT.
Oh, God.
And now it's like, we had the XNA, Exact, revolution, and with that, FMON and WISE are obviously, free to download, but this wasn't even a reality 10 years ago. So if we're framing this 100th episode in a loose 10-year retrospective time frame, it's like, things are more accessible than they ever have been, right?
Mm-hmm. It's pretty great.
Yeah, and what's great about that? God dang it, I was muted. I'm screaming my head off. What's great about that is that it's kind of a perfect timing, right? And I'm going with what Gordon is saying, is that you can have a tendency, if you're not careful, to just sound like everybody else. And I do that, man. I watch movies and go, or a TV show, and hey, look, they did the Hans Zimmer Big Boom kind of thing again. Oh, it's almost like practicing. Hey, I landed a TV show contract. I'm going to try to do my Hans Zimmer sound. Just do your sound, right? But what bothers me is when I hear that repetitive business done endlessly. What's great about all these prices coming down is now everybody's competing in that market, and it's going to force these companies to find new ways to create new sounds that differentiate them from the masses. And I think that's wonderful. I'm glad that things have gotten cheaper, and now they're under subscriptions, and it's going to force the companies to start to look elsewhere to create some more innovative products.
Yeah. Ooh. I kind of wanted to chime in on this one thing to finish out, but since you mentioned Fantastic Contraption, Gordon, I've also been thinking about that in conjunction with a new thing that I've been playing with, which is Chromophone 2.
Okay.
And so it's all about physically modeling percussive instruments, and you could do things like I'm going to have this resonator and attach it to this resonator, and actually I'm going to make this particular type of drum, and I'm going to make these things absolutely huge or incredibly small and whatnot. We can make virtual instruments in a lot of software these days, but being able to visualize it, I think, really can help put in perspective what it is that's really, truly motivating that sound. And I would just love to have that. Put on my Vive headset and mess around with Chromophone 2 and actually craft a percussion instrument in virtual reality that I'm also going to be playing ostensibly for making a unique sound.
Yeah, or imagine being able to like work with a wave shaper and actually just like grab the waves and like walk around it as it's doing its thing. It would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I don't see them being like hugely professionally viable. I just think it's a really cool creative thing.
But hey, it's all about creativity, right?
Yeah.
Anything that can help you out, and I think this could.
To Damien's earlier point on the increasing accessibility of sound libraries, since we're looking, I think the original question was, what do you see in a year or so, if my distant memory of that is correct, Vince? We've started to see the onset of subscription services for sample libraries, which would have been unheard of a few years ago, I think East-West being most visible. And I'm not saying I look forward to this trend, but I think we'll be seeing more and more of it as more companies jump on the subscription bandwagon, and increasing numbers of young composers coming out of college who may not have the monetary resources to buy a massive library can suddenly have access to many libraries all at once for what seems like a fairly modest financial investment. I would argue it's a devil's bargain, but that's another topic. But I think we'll definitely see more of that and more adoption within the time frame of a year.
Yeah, that's big now. All right, let's move on to one more question.
Sponsorship.
Oh, let's do that first.
You want to do it first?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we definitely have to thank Isotope.
Oh, man. Hey, Vince, you want to do it?
Well, Isotope, thank you. Because we have, well, I mean, I can speak for myself. I've been using your stuff a whole lot this last week. I've been doing a whole lot with Final Mix, and I was actually extolling the virtues of the dynamic EQ in Final Mix in the green room earlier. It's really, really wonderful sounding, and I'm glad that I'm finally getting into it. It's really amazing how many features you have in all these things. I realize, oh man, this part's really great, this part's really great, this limiter is great, and now I'm getting into the dynamic EQ and learning how to make that sound really good, and the fact that it is sounding really good. So Isotope, thank you for making my life honestly that much easier.
That's an awesome endorsement. Hey, in addition to that, Vince, let's give something away. I'm going to put it up on the screen. This special 100th episode, we are giving away, let's see if I can share that screen. Let me know if you see it. Present it to everybody. We are giving away Isotope 7 Essential Mastering Tools. It's a pretty new product, and I think all of us here have been using the crap out of that.
I like Ozone a lot. In fact, I would say I love Ozone. I see this hashtag that you've got there. If you want to be part of this giveaway, just tweet at us at Game Audio Hour as well as at Isotope Inc. and just say your word on stuff about Isotope or stuff about Ozone, and make sure you include that hashtag I love Ozone 7, and you will be entered into a giveaway for the whole Ozone 7 suite.
For your information, the guy who goes through all the thousands and thousands of tweets that we get is me. So unless you have exactly what is on Carl's screen right now, which is hashtag I love Ozone 7, and at Isotope Inc. and at Game Audio Hour, you will be disqualified unless I receive bribes in advance.
What are the qualifying bribes, Alex? Could you mention those, please?
Oh, cash. Actually, I like to keep it simple, you know.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. Have you set up an Amazon gift list that people could? Never mind.
Yeah. Let's cut it up right now, I think.
Our first one is already in, and I'm not going to tell you who it is.
It's not me. Wasn't me.
I think it might have been.
Where I saw you typing.
Maybe it was me.
Boom! All right, man. I'll take this down now. So anybody watching the show, don't forget to. Anybody listening to the show, please watch the show. We've kind of given it away because one thing we wanted to do is just set up these pictures that force people to watch the show, and then I realized that's not very nice. So we will announce it as well as we have done here. Hashtag I love Ozone 7. Make sure that you send that to at Isotope Inc. and at Game Audio Hour, and we will be able to track it, and we'll choose a winner next week during the show. Right, Alex?
That's right. I'll be watching. Right. My bank account will be waiting. PayPal.
The funds are in the way.
I can't believe that you're bribing people during our sponsor announcement. That's real high class there, Alex May.
If you'd like to bribe Alex, please use the hashtag #cash4Alex, and that's the number 4. It's not the word 4, and include his PayPal address.
Yeah.
Do you accept isotope plugins for bribery?
No, of course not. Now I'm an ethical person. You know, I'm a panelist on the show. I'm not allowed to win.
But he does take it in yens, and so if you want to send him 4,000 yen, that would probably maybe not work.
Yeah, that'll cover you for about like a lunch for 3.
Would I really? Would 4,000 yen get a lunch? I am so afraid to try to do that conversion in my head of how many thousands of yen I need to buy a pack of bubble gum.
That's.
100. Anyway, next question.
Yes, let's move on to the next question. So far, the last 2 questions have been answered successfully by Game Audio Hour guys. So let's see if the Kaiga guys and Damien can get in on this. Here is the next question, and again, a history question. So, Herzog Zwei by Technosoft is generally considered the earliest real-time strategy game. What year did it come out?
82.
No. Wait a minute. Do you want to guess at that,
I
Matthew?
can just start throwing numbers around.
86.
No. Gordon?
87.
No, but getting closer.
89.
Yes! Damien!
Damien, you're so good at trivia.
Excellent. Yes, Herzog Zwei came out for the Sega Genesis in 1989. It was actually an early Sega Genesis game.
That was the first real-time strategy game?
Yeah. That came out actually a few years before Dune 2 hit.
Oh.
Yeah.
What I was
thinking Dune 1.
Oh.
Oh, Dune 1 was the book, so.
Like, that's what I always wondered. There was Dune 2, which was a super awesome game. I was like, whatever happened to the first one?
Oh, I mean, it's, you had the book or the movie, and then you had Dune 2, the game. It's kind of like Goonies, right? Because you had Goonies, the movie, and then Konami came out with Goonies 2 for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
How Goonie was that? Never mind, it's a horrible joke.
Oh, man. Anyways, Damien, let's see. Here we go. Since Herzog Zwei is a real-time strategy game, and it's one of those types of games that actually encourages something that we see a lot of now, which is esports. So, esports, let's play, the idea of game spectatorship. How has this changed your approach to game audio design? Or has it? What do you think about esports? Or if you're making a game that's made to be spectated, do you think about the sound design for spectators differently from the sound design for players?
Excellent question. Excellent question.
Yeah, well, I'm going to piggyback right off of Matthew's second blog post that he has written recently and started, which talks about, how to make choices about how your game sounds. And I will say that to his second point, point 1 was, Matthew, if you can refresh my memory, was...
you can build the world, inform the player.
Build the world, which
cheerleaders.
is... Yeah, there you go, set it up. Inform the player, and I would say that more than anything else in the esports, you want to be communicating to the player at all times the important things to them in the moment. And so I think nowhere is that second point of Matthew's article more important than in esports. We all need to take it into consideration, but yeah, so that's kind of my biggest point is yes, absolutely, it's different, and yes, absolutely, it's got to be important. So I don't know, Matthew, you want to comment more from the perspective of your article? So I thought you nailed it. You did a great job of setting that up.
Yeah, basically the idea was that I just used these 2 kind of goalposts or flagpoles or whatever to make every decision about a sound that goes into the game. You're either building the world to immerse the player in, or you're informing the player of what they need to know about. And if a sound isn't doing one of those 2 things, chuck it. And then what kind of game you are totally dictates which of those becomes more important at any given time. So yeah, like a competitive game, it is, like a fighting game. everything really is about informing the player of what's going on. It's why, blind people can play good fighting games, is because they can listen to it and all the information is in the sound that lets them play those games. So yeah.
It's in the chat room actually. The always illustrious Frida has raised a very interesting point. She said, if people are watching someone else play a game for esports, they're typically listening to commentators and/or live crowd sounds. Game sounds are null and void. Whereas a let's play depends on who's playing. Someone who thinks they're a comedian or someone who's just capturing gameplay footage. It's a lost battle for audio when it's about showmanship. That's a really interesting point. I don't know that I tend to agree wholly. I remember one specific example is when I went to PSX last year. It was the very first time I've actually seen an esports event with Street Fighter 4. And I've seen them on YouTube before and stuff like that, but actually going to see one live, that was the very first time that I'd done it. And it was pretty incredible. And simply because, the people who are watching that kind of thing, they get so involved in it, it really is like a spectator thing. And obviously Capcom do that kind of sort of ridiculous kind of drama so well with their game, that just the way it's paced, and I think the way that it sounds comes into that as well. It's like when you're in that event and people are cheering and you've got the commentators' voices that you can hear, it's true that what we do as setting up the audio for the game, it's true that it does take second place compared to everything else that a spectator is viewing or that a player is actually doing. However, I don't know that I would say that it's a lost battle as far as audio, because like the bass player in a band, if you take it out, it's really going to sound uncomfortable. Like if you had that event and you just had some sort of basic default punch sounds and stuff, and there's no music, there's no sort of, when the KO thing comes up and the screen's flashing and it just says KO and it's a flashing screen and there's no sound, all you hear is people cheering. I don't know that it would be as exciting as it is without that kind of ridiculous Capcom, the sort of bed of noise in that kind of situation, I think is really exciting just for maintaining this sort of general hype. If I just imagine that esports event without any game sound or with just sort of very poorly considered game sound, I think I would say that it would be as half as exciting as it actually was, because of all of this sort of bed of noise and audio, or sort of oral excitement that's happening as everybody's cheering on top. Well, what do you guys think about Frida's comment there?
Well, I was having a conversation with some people online, I think today or yesterday. We were just talking about volume sliders, like how many volume sliders do you give the players in the options of your game? And I think when you start considering, is your thing going to be twitched, is your thing going to be streamed, you have to put a different consideration of what sliders you give players, because when you're streaming a game, we noticed Invisible Ink has a lot of speech in it. The speech got in the way of people twitching our game and streaming it, and so giving them like, okay, a regular player wants to hear all the VO in our game, but if you're doing a Twitch stream, maybe we should let you turn that down so that you can be the comedian that you think you are over top of things. So it does bring in just a different considerations. You got to consider what that means, what that audience means for your game, and how you can serve them without doing the rest of your game any fault.
Well, I love that it's a consideration for right now, taking into account the ways that people are playing, not just in their homes, on the couch, in front of the screen, but as a social thing or as a streamer. These are things that that I think are in sharp contrast to, again, just 10 short years ago, where developers were reluctant to put sliders in at all because it messed with their artistic vision for what the sound is going to be at. Can't remember which games. Does Halo have sliders? I have a feeling that there may have been a time when they did not, and I think that it is the idea, sharply in contrast to this, give them what they need to be successful conversation that we're having, to the, I am the artist trying to realize this artistic vision for you. Don't mess with my shit, right? And yeah, and I don't agree with it at all. I think again, you're in service of the player as a developer, especially in today's day and age. And so I think yeah, if there is a need for the community to enable this kind of feature, then that is what you do in service of your players. So
it's basically like you're like, I know best, but you can be wrong all you want if it makes you happy. As long as you're buying my games, you can be wrong all you want, and you have to just give in to that.
Yeah. I think Damien and Matt's points sort of pointing the same direction. That in the case, if you have the privilege to work on a game that gets played in a big arena with lots and lots of people watching and cheering, and you're thinking, well, nobody's going to hear my sound anyway. I think if you have that privilege, I think what Damien and Matt are saying is that in that case, there's even more importance that you very, very carefully consider what you're putting in, because as Damien said, if you think that we are in service to the player from that point of view, basically now you're in service of a crowd, and that's an incredible privilege, and then gives you an incredible power as well, as far as creating, as I mentioned, that sort of bed of excitement where it's necessary, and sort of controlling to a certain extent that flow of people's energy as they're watching an event. I've never understood Capcom's sound. To be honest, I've never understood it. Like, why do they do it like this? I've never understood it, and when I'm playing by myself, I've never really enjoyed it. I'll say it. It's true. You can lynch me later. I've never really enjoyed it. However, when I was at that PSX event, that esports event, watching Street Fighter in its element, because arguably being such a ridiculous, dramatic party kind of game, watching it in its place like that, that's when it made sense, and the sound was a big part of that. But I've never understood why it has to be so busy and so just ridiculous, and everything's all these genres are mashed in together, and all this ridiculous sound. There's just bang. When you play it by yourself, it doesn't really make sense, but in that venue, then it makes sense. And I think, as Damien said, if the guys and the girls out at Capcom, which is a company that's just a little bit down that way, by the way, well, actually, quite a bit fair way down that way, but anyway, I think, when they're doing their work, they're probably thinking, well, okay, this is an esports game, and this is going to be played to an arena, so how are we going to structure this to service not just the single player, but the whole crowd? So it's even greater responsibility, as opposed to it being a lost battle, I would say. Good question, though.
So on that note, I would like to pass on one of my favorite bass player jokes.
Uh-oh. Watch out. I think Gordon is a bass player, too, because I see a P-bass behind him there, so you better be careful.
I know.
Open up some
floodgates. I own a bass, I'm not a bass player.
Why couldn't the bassist get through the front door?
Go on, Carl.
He didn't know, he couldn't find the key and couldn't figure out the time to come in.
There we go.
So I had to leave it with that. You're welcome.
Actually, I was going to say that I was thinking just earlier when Vince was asking me, I thought of my answer a little bit too late. What would be nice to see, I think, is more options for input controllers for bassists, because you can play those strings in so many different ways, and there are no bass controllers that I know of that can, sort of take your fingers or your pick or your slapping or whatever you're doing and map them to different kinds of controllers. So maybe like a leap motion underneath the strings of a bass or something. Anyway, that was something completely relevant. I'm done.
Leap motions on all the things.
So Vince, what do we got next?
We only have 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say this really quickly. Before SquareSoft hit it big with Final Fantasy, they struggled to make the business work with their previous 25 games. Name one of them.
Oh, God. I just know that Final Fantasy is called Final Fantasy because they were like, this is it.
They made other popular games, though.
Fantasy final game. Yeah, but they were drowning.
But they have made actually popular games, known U.S. Western world released games before Final Fantasy. So can anyone name one of them?
Semi-Final Fantasy?
No. Oh man.
First
Penultimate
fantasy or
fantasy?
just fantasy
What?
or pre-fantasy?
Fantasy.
Penultimate.
Zelda.
No. Oh wow. Okay.
Almost
Triangle random
final.
games.
Almost final _3 final. Really the final one. Final. Almost
Right.
final.
The Who
Fantasy.
reunion tour.
All
Number
right.
10.
I'm gonna throw a couple. I swear that you would have heard of some of these.
Sure, I've heard of them.
So,
I
for
never touched
example,
JRPGs.
Rad Racer.
Oh yeah.
You guys remember
That's gotta
Rad
be a
Racer?
good game.
That was actually a rather popular one, and that came out just
Was it
summer
rad?
before Final Fantasy. It
Was
was
it
pretty
rad?
rad.
Okay.
It was actually really rad. You could actually wear 3D glasses while playing the game, and it
Oculus?
had a 3D mode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very,
Nice.
very cool. But anyways, I was going to say, if you got this question right, then you would have free reign to ask questions of any of us here. But I guess should I ask
We
another
blew that
question?
one.
Yeah, I kind of blew that one. I had a
let's
couple
wrap up.
other things that we had a couple other questions here, but we don't really have a huge amount of time for it.
Go for it. It's our 100th
All right.
show.
Okay, here's a really quick one. Let's do a really quick one, and everyone just have a stab at this. But demos. If someone is giving you a demo, what do you want to see in it? Just, what's the format? How is it delivered? What is there? Kyle.
Oh, I want to hear really good music. I want to
Really
hear.
good music.
I want to hear it right away. Are we talking music demo or sound design? Sound design.
Well,
Yeah,
let's say-
'cause
let's
if
say
it's a sound
either
design one,
music
I
or
don't
some-
want to hear music.
Oh yeah, that's true. That whole issue of
What's the demo for? If it's a music
I
demo,
went with the presumption because I just wanted to keep it moving. But if it's a music demo, I don't want to hear something that I've heard before.
Yes.
I want it to be exciting, and I want it to be right at the beginning. I don't mind if later on it becomes a little bit, less exciting. It can't be ordinary. It can't be trite, but it needs to hit me right away with an idea that I haven't heard before. That's not that hard to do, because what you do is you just be yourself, and that's the odd thing about demos, is being yourself. I think most people approach them from I got to sound like Hans Zimmer, or I got to do a Danny Elfman, or I got to do something that existed in a very popular game to prove that I can do the same thing. If I'm listening to your demo, you've already proven to me that you're capable of writing music in the case of a music demo. You've already proven to me that you have a creative side to you, and now I want to hear what that is. I want to hear what you are, and not what somebody else has done already. And so I want it to be exciting, and I want it to be unique to you. It doesn't have to be unique like it's never existed in the world, but I also don't want to hear the same thing done over again already as a proving ground that you're capable of doing that. The problem with being capable of doing that is that so many people are capable of doing that, and so you've eliminated yourself from being unique. So take that chance and do something that is purely who you are, and that's what's going to make it exciting for me.
Yeah, I've never had the privilege to be reviewing demos, but I imagine that if I was, one thing that I would really like to see is personality, like very practiced personality, not just something, it sounds really weird and strange and I don't understand this, but something that this person is very used to making music and sounds as themselves, and they're very comfortable with that, and this is them, and when you listen to it, you can think this person has a very well-practiced, well-considered expression of themselves, not just, hey, look at me, I'm versatile, I can do everything. I'd rather hear that, I can do myself really, really well. And
I think a lot of people are afraid, Alex, on that point, that what they do, even though it's unique right now, it might get them their first job, or may get them this job, whatever that is. I think that even veteran composers are afraid that they'll overstay their welcome with what it is that they do well.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case, because if you think about that, Hans Zimmer has a bag full of tricks. And I know I brought him up already, but I can't help myself because I'm kind of tired of hearing them. And he does the same tricks every damn time. But eventually people are going to get tired of hearing those tricks come out of his studio. And that's already started with me, and certainly a lot of other people when I look online to reviews. And so even no matter how big you are, if you settle for this thing that you've been successful with, you're going to end up shortening your lifespan. You need to keep moving forward. In his case, in Hans Zimmer's case, and I can't speak for him honestly, but I can speak for him. I can speak from a position of a critic. I'm tired of hearing that. I don't want to hear that anymore. And when I hear it in games and I hear it in TV shows, it drives me nuts. And I think to myself, who evaluated that demo? Who said to that composer, hey, great job doing that Hans Zimmer sound. That's exactly what we wanted. I don't like that, personally. I think you should be doing something that is unique, that can push the IP forward as well, because you are actually causing a lifespan on that IP if you start sounding like everything else. Yeah. If you present something new, then you're presenting a future for that IP as well. Sorry to get so preachy about it, but that drives me crazy.
No, I agree 100%. People send me their reels all the time to get feedback, or I don't know if they're applying for jobs. I'm never really offering them, but that's the main problem I run into. Really talented composers, and everything they do sounds like everything else I've heard before, and I'm especially uninterested in, like, Hans Zimmer always sounded contrived to me. I don't like most movie soundtracks. Or I like they're pleasing to my ear. I don't find them annoying, but they don't stand out to me. Like, there's only 3 movie soundtracks that I think are really amazing. And
what were those?
Else, I think, wait a minute, what? Ravenous. It's all the Rockstar soundtracks. The soundtrack for Ravenous, the movie Ravenous, Beasts of the Southern Wild, like, really stood out to me.
Yes.
And There Will Be Blood, the Johnny Greenwood.
Oh
one.
yeah.
So I like soundtracks that are just super obnoxious, and they themselves are a character. I don't really fall into the line with the purpose of the soundtrack is to support the film. I'm kind of like I'm much more obnoxious in my bent, and that's how I write my soundtracks as well. They're pretty obnoxious a lot of the time.
Yeah. So when I see
I agree completely, and as a guitarist, Johnny Greenwood stuff is just, thank God somebody's getting famous. But what bothers me about that, and I sit and critique this, and it annoys the shit out of my wife, so she's watching. Sorry, baby. When I'm listening to a soundtrack and some guitar stuff happens, I go, why is that okay here, but the game industry won't accept it at that level? You know, because I am so tired of hearing orchestras with distorted guitar. Oh, come on. Seriously? And it bothers the hell out of me. I'm sorry, maybe I've had one too many scotches. So I love it when a movie will do something adventurous with that instrument, because the one thing that I think a guitar shouldn't do is sound like a goddamn guitar. I am so sick of that bar sound of a guitar, but Johnny Greenwood takes it way beyond that, and people love it. But then I wonder if people love it because it's Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead, or if they actually really heard what could be done with a guitar. Have you ever wondered that about the instrument that you're into? Are people digging it because it's the instrument, or it's the instrument being played by a specific person?
I like to force instruments into genres they don't belong in. A lot of I've been using like banjo for this Viking game.
Nice.
But tuning it to a harmonic minor, and people don't really notice that it's a banjo. It doesn't sound like a back porch song, you know. There's just fun things you can do with instruments. I mean, I still use guitars for rock and roll because what they do really well.
It's rock and roll. That's a great. Anyway, that was a great topic. I got a little hot under the collar about, but that's why I mute myself half the time through the show.
Are we totally out of time?
No, we are not out of time. So 100th show, like I said, the internet will stay open for us.
So we should go to 100. I think we should go to 100 minutes. I'll offer a bit of a devil's advocacy position on the question of what people are listening to in a demo.
All right, we're out of time.
That would happen. I mean, I agree with Kyle and would like to elaborate on why Kyle was right for 25 minutes. Is that okay? I have a secret agenda. So, all right. Usually the question, you have to ask yourself, to whom is this question being directed? If you're asking a composer who is willing to maybe give some feedback to another composer on what he or she wants in music sent to him, the answer is probably going to be along the lines of everyone's response. I'd like something original. I'd like something that's not derivative. I'd like to hear a new voice. Because as composers, we are bored. And hearing something musically stimulating is really great. It kind of rekindles our enthusiasm, and it's something we can react to. If you are a decision maker on a project, a game producer, game lead, or a filmmaker, something strikingly original that defies most genres is probably almost never what you want to hear. I think what a producer wants to hear is something that is in the pocket for the project they are working on right now. And if they hear something that feels compatible stylistically with their artistic concept for the music, they're going to respond positively. And their artistic concept for the music may not be that imaginative. It may be based on some temp scores that were thrown in there, or scores for the last 5 games in that genre. It's probably a rare occasion where something strikingly different is going to win points with a project leader or a producer of a game, unless the stakes are low or the game itself is unusually creative. If it's an indie game, it's a mobile game where there aren't millions upon millions of dollars sunk in and people are not risk averse, then you might be open to hearing something really cool, and in that case, being off the wall or really interesting could well be an asset. But if you're going for a studio game or something where there's a lot of decision makers, probably the best thing to put is a particularly polished or enlightened spin on the familiar. And that may not be the most inspiring answer, but I think that's practical guidance in a lot of cases.
I think it's a skill that I think you should be able to do a lot of things, but I don't think it should be your main marketing point. I think you should still be cultivating yourself as a personality. Otherwise, otherwise, if you become the guy that's really good at cookie cutter music, then you're going to be doing cookie cutter music all the time. But I know that not everyone can do that, and I feel like I got really lucky with the developers I work with, where I get a lot of free reign to be weird. But I always kind of sucked at hitting references really well, and that was like that accidentally funneled me into people are hiring me for the sound that I have. Is because I would try to hit a reference, and then this other thing would happen, and they would still like it. But they were like, oh, it wasn't really like the reference, but we kind of like this better because it's wrong.
Make a good point about, Mike makes a good point, and so does Gordon, about, you got to get the gig, right?
Yes.
So you say, okay, here's the temp score that you've been addicted to, and I've got to try to hit that. But the power of conversation gets forgotten. Don't just say, they've given me a template, and I'm going to try to hit that. Have a conversation about the changes that you're going to make to that template, or especially when you deliver something, not beforehand, but afterwards, and say, I listened, but here's what I heard. And that is really powerful. Don't just turn it in and say, I did my best temp, because they're going to go, that didn't really hit the mark. But if you explain to them that, I understand this is the temp and this is where you developed from, but here's what I heard. It not only gives you some credence when you're trying to get the gig, it also shows a certain understanding of how music works. And that will give you a future with them, to let them know that you understand how to interpret what it is they're shooting for, and yet make it your own.
I would like to add a little bit into here. The demos I mostly see are kind of a step back from that. It's not specifically demoing for a certain game with a company. It's more just broad demos, hey, who are you? And the demos in those, be it music or sound effects, I want to see your stuff with a game. I want to see that you get, what did you write this song for? Like a SoundCloud link of this is a fight music. Well, for what? In what style of game? I want to know that you get how the music goes with video games, not that you're just a composer. So show me that you get how audio and music and games go together.
That is so true.
It's a big question of, are you composing in the DAW, or are you composing in a tool, right? Or are you composing for a system in a game, right? And I think those are 3 big different things, right? because I think the history of linear composition is well established, and we're pretty clear on what people are capable of in that area, right? And it may still be the best way to judge the ability of someone, in the same way that a lot of people like to hear a linear sound effects demo or a sound replacement demo in linear to judge, you know, creativity or aesthetic choices that someone might make, right? But I was going to kind of weigh in and just say, at the end of the day, circling back around to this idea of accessibility, listen, you got engines you can download, you got middleware you can download. It didn't take much for me in my free time to rig up some freakish planet orbiting sound oscillation noisescape, right, with Unity and the Wise integration for funsies, right? And if it's the thing that you're doing because you love doing it, I'm thinking you're going to come up with something that's pretty killer, leveraging the tools, the interactivity, the techniques, all of the things that ultimately someone who is trying to land a job in the industry doing kind of has at their fingertips right now. And there's just, in my opinion, you know, the barrier of entry has raised exponentially over the last 10 years from a place where linear was okay. That's all we had. That was it, right? And that is not the case anymore.
Yeah,
and all of the tools are accessible.
It's kind of, the bar has both gone down and up at the same time. All the tools are easier to get your hands on, cheaper to get, like better quality for cheaper stuff. So it's easier. The bar is lower to get into this, but then everybody can do it. So
everybody's better. Yeah,
you've got to be really good at it.
The expectation is much higher.
Yeah, I definitely say, like how Damien's saying, which, like, show off the stuff you did for fun. Like, and to like toot my own horn a bit for that article I did for designing sound today, which is go into a project without a plan and then see what happens, rather than saying, like, I'm going to write fight music, I'm going to write an epic mountain scenery song. You just sit down with your tools and just be like, what do we have here? Improvise, curate the things that are good, and then that's how you get your sound. That's when you're going to get something out of it that no one else can get, as if you had no goal to begin with.
That's so true. And how many of us have bought a new instrument and written like 5 or 6 songs on it? Never forget, on the wall. Never forget the power of that. You know, if you, whether it's software or hardware, if you buy something new, or if you commit yourself to that in a similar way, you will produce something that is of the time. You know what I mean? It will actually be you at that time, being free with your creativity. And that is so much more powerful than trying to sound like something that already exists. All right, we should probably head off, huh?
Yeah. Well, we're 15 minutes over, but it's been fun.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a bonus size.
It's great.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. It's been an awesome, awesome show. And thank you for celebrating our 100th show with us.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Thanks. We do it out of pure torture. No, I'm kidding. It isn't easy to do 100 shows, but we're happy to have reached it. And so I'll end with this spiel. Thanks for watching the show, everybody, and thank you for the live chat room. Thank you to the live chat room. Sorry, I misread that. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. Please follow us on Twitter, and please like us on Facebook. I always get those wrong, so I have to say the words. And thank you to the guests for being here, and we're going to sign off.
Thanks for having us.
Also, thank you, Isotope. Don't forget to join in for the giveaway.
So true. Thanks, everybody. Bye, chatty.
Cheers.
See ya.